Good morning. It is Wednesday, June 6th, and I am live from my office here today. Welcome to Coffee with Kelly. This morning I am drinking a matcha green tea latte, so it's actually tea with Kelly this morning. It is extremely refreshing. It's iced. It's already warm in Greeley, Colorado today, so I'm having an iced latte this morning instead of hot. And I'm going to jump right in. I missed you all last week. I got really crazy busy and didn't have time to do Coffee with Kelly last week. So I'm back this week, and we're talking about immigration status and whether or not that impacts an employee's rights in the workplace. So the question I'll pose is, do immigrants and citizens have the same workplace rights? Is the question. And the answer is yes and no. So all employees who have legal permission to work, and that would include both citizens and people who have a green card or have a work permit, all have the same rights. There's no differentiation under the law. If you have a legal right to work, then you have the same rights as a citizen. You cannot, as an employer, discriminate on the basis of citizenship versus someone who has a work permit or a green card, what's commonly been called a green card. You have to treat those people the same, and you can't terminate someone because they have a green card. You can't refuse to hire someone because they have a green card. If someone has permission to work, they have permission to work. When it comes to wage claims, so claims for unpaid overtime, unpaid wages, unpaid final paychecks, there is no differentiation under the law regardless of your documentation or immigration status. So people will come to me sometimes and say, I don't have papers. Does that mean that they didn't have to pay me, or they don't have to pay me minimum wage, or they don't have to pay me overtime? And the answer is no. Under the wage laws, all workers have a right to be paid the minimum wage, to be paid overtime when it's earned, and to be paid their pay on time and paid correctly. So employers who pay a different wage to employees based on immigration status, totally unacceptable and not permissible under the law. That is a violation of the Wage Act. So under both Colorado and federal law. And here's the reason why. We don't want to encourage employers to exploit employees who don't have legal status to work in the United States, because then they'd only hire illegal immigrants. They'd force people with legal work status out of jobs, or they'd exploit workers, and we think that a right to be paid a wage for the hours that you work is a human right in the United States. Okay, so when it comes to discrimination, there is a difference. This is where it comes into play whether or not someone has work status. So if someone does not have a work permit, in other words, they're either undocumented or they're here perhaps on a student visa, which doesn't have a work permit associated with it, or their work permit has expired. When it comes to discrimination claims, they are still entitled to damages going backward. It's still illegal to discriminate on the basis of national origin or on the basis of immigration status. They're still subject to damages that arise from the discrimination, regardless of what the basis of the discrimination is. So if, for example, someone is undocumented and they have a gender discrimination claim, they would still be entitled to their damages that arise from that, except that they can't get what's called front pay. Front pay is a type of damages or a type of compensation meant to compensate for wages going forward from the date of the lawsuit, so going into the future. The law says that people without permission to work are not entitled to those kinds of compensation because they don't have a legal right to work. They wouldn't have had a right to work or continue working anyway. And so for the same reason, wrongful termination in violation of public policy, this sometimes comes up for whistleblowing or after someone has filed a workers' compensation claim. It's still illegal to terminate someone wrongfully, but the employee is not entitled to compensation going into the future because they wouldn't have had a legal right to work anyway. So the answer to the question is, do citizens and immigrants have the same workplace rights, is mostly yes, a little bit no. There is that differentiation when it comes to discrimination claims and wrongful termination claims. But the most important thing to know is it is illegal regardless of someone's immigration status to discriminate, to pay wages differently, to fail to pay the minimum wage, pay overtime, or pay wages when due. If you or anyone you know is experiencing any of these kinds of claims, whether they have work status or not, I encourage you to contact Riley Law. I'm happy to talk with you and get more into some of the details that arise when people are facing these types of issues. Have a great Wednesday, everyone, and we'll see you next week.